This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Hello and welcome to Voices Unhindered. I'm Crystal Jenkinson. On this show, I give a unique perspective and listening ear to voices that often go unheard. I want everyone to know that you are not alone and that your voice and story matters. On this week's episode of Voices Unhindered, I speak with Dame Sue Bagshaw, Chairman of Youth Hub Trust, about Youth Hub's opening, Sue's background, and what got her into working with youth. Could you tell me a little bit about your upbringing and childhood, please?
Well, I was born in Hong Kong on the day that Mao Zedong took over China. That was remarkable because every day on my birthday, the communist buildings in Hong Kong would be decorated red, and I thought it was for me, which was a great celebration of my birthday. I went to primary school in Hong Kong and then went to boarding school in England when I was about 9, I think.
Do you mind me asking why you were born in Hong Kong?
My father went out there. Before the war, he was an apprentice jeweller, and there weren't any jobs for apprentice jewellers after the war in London. So he answered an advert for a job in Hong Kong, which was at a department store as a jeweller. So that's where I happened to be born.
You said you spent your primary school years there?
Yeah, and then when I was 9, I was sent off to boarding school in England because my parents thought it would be a better education than what I would have got in Hong Kong. I'm not sure if they were right. Anyway, that's what it was. I then went on to medical school in London.
Yeah, and what motivated you or led you into going to medical school?
I really didn't. I had science A-levels, that's the equivalent of university entrance, and I really couldn't think of anything much to do with them, but it seemed the most useful thing I could do was medicine, so I thought, well, I'll apply, and if I get in, great. If I don't, I have to try something else.
Did you also have like a strong concern for other people? Is that kind of what?
Well, I think my main motivation was to be useful. Yeah, certainly like people.
And then what led you into specialising in sexual health medicine?
Well, we got married. My husband was at the same medical school. We actually dissected the same dead body, but he didn't like me much then. We got married actually while we were medical students, and then we had our first child fairly early on because we decided it was best to have children while we were young. So we had 3 children, and then in 1981, we came to New Zealand because of my husband's job. From there, I started working at family planning as a kind of part-time job. It's a really helpful job to get people back into medicine who have been out of medicine for a while, especially mums. And we had a number 4 child, and then I was offered a more full-time job at family planning.
And did you just go and apply at family planning, or were you like offered the job?
I was offered the job. Well, I increased my numbers as the children got older. And when the youngest was 5, I was offered the manager of the South Island clinics, so I took that up.
What were some challenges and like good things about working there?
Lack of money, as usual, like everything. I was able to help start up a clinic in Nelson and one in Ashburton, but sadly they haven't lasted, and while I was there, I had the great opportunity to do some research with our young patients who were coming to find out what would help them best, and they wanted a youth clinic. Cool. So that's when we started a youth clinic at family planning.
Yeah, so you got your information through working, is it mostly at family planning where you did like a survey?
What happened was that another survey was being done with our patients on sexual health and behaviour. And so we asked if we could add on a couple of questions about what kind of services young people would like. Because it was very obvious that we were really catering for white middle-class young people. So we thought we'd ask them what they would like, and they felt that a clinic just for them would be really appreciated because they were always fearful of loss of confidentiality and meeting a teacher or a relative in the waiting room and all those kind of things.
And when you talk about confidentiality, do you mean like they didn't feel comfortable talking to people that were older than them?
No, more that the people they were talking to would tell their parents.
Yeah. How does it feel to have Youth Hub Stage 1 complete?
That's magic. I should be really, really happy when I see all the young people actually using it. It'd be interesting to see how they use it too, because there's a wide variety of organisations and the hostel, and hopefully we'll add on the event centre soon, and more in terms of creativity. Well, I hope it'll be a safe haven where they can come, find safety, find connection with caring adults, find friendships with other young people, and really grow in their development, and create and maintain mental health, basically, and healing for those who've got poor mental health.
Do you need to be referred, or can you just take yourself there if you need support? Or does it depend on like what services you want?
Well, you can come when we finish building. We'll have a drop-in centre where you can just come, and then hopefully get information. I'm encouraging people to go to our website, Youth Hub Chucha, or meet that organisation in the hub, because there'll be 4 anchor tenants there. There'll be Tatahi Youth, and Youth Line, and Voice Whakarongamai, and Rera Awa, which is for, a voice for youth workers, and Youth Voice Canterbury, and Youth Council. And then all the other organisations will have hot desk space and be able to have meetings with young people, so they know where to go and they know how to find us, basically, because all those different organisations will all come to one place.
And for the priorities of the transitional housing, how do you judge like who is in need of transitional housing the most?
Basically, anybody who wants to come into the transitional housing will have to be on the housing waiting list. That's the MSD one, or I think WINS runs it. And that's the only way they'll be able to get the income-related rent subsidy, because they will pay rent, but it will be related to their income. So any organisation wanting to refer somebody to the hub, to the hostel, then they would need to make sure that that person's name was on the housing list. And then Methodist Mission are going to run our housing, and they will take people, really look at the most need. So obviously starting with people who are actually on the street already, or in emergency accommodation, or just people with nowhere else to go because they've been chucked out of home for whatever reason.
And how do you describe the ideal youth worker?
The ideal youth worker, somebody who listens. Somebody who listens and who journeys with a young person, and maybe introduces them to some new ideas, but basically journeying with that young person on their journey, and connecting with them, and mostly listening.
And how has youth workers' role changed over the years?
I don't think it's changed that much, to be honest. I think what has changed is the way other people think about youth workers, because for a long time they've thought about them as just a guy who just comes along and plays games. But I think the important thing is that now they have really good training. They can belong to an organisation called Korowai Tupu, which makes sure they're well trained and have certificates, and really are on a par with, in my view, social workers. But they specifically work with young people as opposed to all the other age groups.
Yeah, and what got you interested in the youth field?
I think the opportunity to help people grow. I think, it's the best thing to actually watch somebody journey through puberty, and you can see their brains coming online almost in front of your eyes, and all of a sudden they're telling you what you've told them for 10 years, and that's fantastic. And I just love that journey of development and watching how people deal with all the challenges that lie before them.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Dame Sue Bagshaw, Chairman of Youth Hub Trust, about Youth Hub's opening, Sue's background, and what got her into working with youth. And what is most concerning to you about youth in our country today?
Well, I think there are huge pressures from parents and teachers and society to perform. And you know what? Human beings, I don't think, are made to perform. I think we're made to have relationships. And I think relationships happen when you are with other people and they develop. I think we've lost our way in our society at the moment, so that young people are actually suffering the most. Tamariki children are suffering even more. Mm-hmm. We have more and more broken families, and for whatever reason, it's really hard for a young parent or any parent to bring up children on their own. Mm. And to me, relationships, a community of people that help grow young people is so important, but we're more and more isolated, and I think that's a real challenge. I think society has a lot to learn about accepting difference and being tolerant of diversity, whatever diversity, whether it be rainbow, ethnicity, whether you're tall or thin or fat. We need to be much more tolerant, and maybe we get less bullying that way, because one of the other biggest challenges that young people face is the bullying. Whether it be physical, face-to-face, or whether it be online. It's one of those really difficult challenges for young people to deal with.
And do you often get youth talking about bullying to
Absolutely, definitely. Bullying at home too. I mean, sometimes parents and other siblings bully more than peers. Certainly they get bullied at school by teachers sometimes. So I think bullying is rife. It's bullying... When you look at adults and the way they act in Parliament, they're bullying, when it comes down to it. So we need to actually examine ourselves. What role models are we giving to our young people? I think bullying is more difficult for young people because they're developing. And so the bullying has more impact on the developing brain as they learn to control emotions and those sorts of things. And if you've been through trauma and bullying before the age of 5 especially, but certainly all through that developmental stage, it's less easy to deal with the bullying. It's far more difficult to control emotions.
Mm. And could you explain a little bit more about Youth Hub, how it will support those who are not sure about their identity?
Well, we're going to have... hopefully Qtopia will have some staff there, maybe not all the time, but from time to time, and also be able to use the space to run groups. And we hope too that all the organisations who come in will be rainbow diverse and ethnicity diverse and welcoming to all cultures. And therefore, rainbow culture is one of those cultures. And we want everybody who comes in to be able to recognise something of themselves in the building, but also the people who are working there will be able to recognise those differences and diversities and be accepting and be able to enhance and enjoy the diversity.
And did your experiences as a youth shape your perspective on how you see the issues that youth face today?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Not really, no.
Did you struggle with anything growing up or...?
I think I had a really strong sense of justice. Mm-hmm. I think all young people do, actually, but sometimes it gets squashed. I remember the school had a mock election, so I stood for the Communist Party because, to me, that was the most just system. It's got spoiled, obviously, by the greedy people who run it. But in its essence, it's a very just system of equality. And I thought that was great. And I was very happy to have won the election.
Mm. And was that in London?
That was in England, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Growing up in China, do you think that influenced your views on politics? I
think I was brought up really in a colonialist society, really, because the colonists anywhere, all over the world, always kind of tend to stick to themselves. But the thing that impacted me most was when I went back to Hong Kong for a long summer holiday when I was at uni. The diversity of cultures was what was really impacting, because Hong Kong is just completely full of diverse cultures. And I think that's made quite an impact on me in terms of making sure that everybody kind of mixed for a start, but then accepted each other.
And did you know when you were younger, like in primary school, that you wanted to be a doctor?
Not really, although it's interesting. My mother found an essay that I'd written which said that I was going to be a doctor on a helicopter in the Shetland Islands of Scotland. I had a wild imagination back then too.
And how far do you see Youth Hub going in the future?
Well, we'd love to have a youth hub in every city in Aotearoa.
And do you have any other projects in your mind that you haven't shared with anyone yet?
Well, I dare not say, because if I have another project like this one, my husband's going to kill me. No, he won't. But at the same time, I think, we want to spend more time together too. So, but we've got to get this one finished first. My kind of message to young people especially is have dreams. If you don't have dreams, then they can't come true. But if you have a dream and you work in little steps towards that dream, you get there. And they do come true. But you've got to be patient, and it's a journey, and you've got to keep working at it and never give up.
If you're just tuning in, I am now speaking with Dame Sue Bagshaw at Tētahi Youth about youth sexual health. Why do you think there is so much controversy on those requiring puberty blockers?
I think people don't understand what puberty blockers are. They really don't quite get that they're just putting things on hold. They see them as extra hormones already, and they're not.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of misinformation sent out by the people who are just anti-people changing their gender. And it's when you think about it, it's probably been people who want to change their gender forever. But up till now, culturally, some cultures actually allow that. But up till now, we haven't had any technology to help people change their gender anyway. So the hormones haven't been around in terms of knowing how to use them, in terms of helping people. And the other consideration, I think, is that gender roles are being changed all over the place ever since the World Wars, really. So, women can do anything men can do anything women can do. The gender, I think it's really hard for the male gender role, the stereotype, in that they're no longer, they feel they should be in charge because they're stronger, but at the same time that's been totally challenged. And so they're not in charge anymore, and women are in charge of lots more of things.
And do you think that was because of the war?
I think it started, that's when it started, when women were allowed to do more things because they had to, because the men weren't there. And I think that's continued on. And then obviously the contraception pill came in, so women were no longer had to have children. They could choose not to, or they could time it, and that really revolutionised everything in terms of gender roles. I think there's a lot of challenge and transition of social stereotypes, put it that way. Yeah.
What are the common misconceptions about sexual health that you encounter in your practice?
I think people don't understand sexual attraction. The role of sex altogether in Commonwealth countries and in lots of other countries for different reasons, sex is just not talked about. People are afraid of sex. They're afraid it's too powerful and it takes over and you can't control it in terms of the sexual attraction stuff. And men have always felt that they can control it and women can't, but actually it's the other way around. So I think there's those underlying power structures. And then a lot of people feel that sexual attraction is just the chemistry stuff. Some people feel it's actually about how you express love. But love has been overworked and means sex these days, whereas, of course, love is way more than sex. And then that whole Victorian attitude, sex is for making babies, it's not about making love. And then the whole gender thing, in that you can only, which is tied up to that, because if you only have sex with the same gender, you don't procreate. And if sex is about procreation, then you shouldn't actually have sex with the same gender. They're all complex themes winding in together, which people actually think it's simple, and it's not. The whole thing is spiritual. That's the best sex. If you can intertwine physical, emotional, and spiritual together, whoa, you've got something very special there. Most people, it remains on the physical. But if you can add in that whole spiritual, absolutely understanding and completely trusting each other, wow, that's amazing.
In what circumstances do you believe a person under 18, parents should be informed about their sexual health?
Young people should be allowed to develop. If they feel too embarrassed to talk to their parents, they should have other people they can talk to.
Yeah.
And parents do not own their children's sexuality, full stop. They don't own anything, actually. Parents should be there to encourage, support, and, if you like, be a cheerleader, not to tell young people exactly what they can and cannot do. Because when they do that, they take away their growing autonomy. And the whole point is to nurture a sense of mutual trust and respect.
For a parent's role in protecting their child, what role do you see them playing?
It has to be a gradual handover. And the trouble is, lots of parents don't want to do that. Don't want to do the handover. But that's, again, about parents listening to their children and trying to gauge to handle different things at various levels.
And how would you identify the primary cause for gender dysphoria?
I think there's two things. There's one thing about gender in terms of those changing stereotypes. But a lot of people who tell me about their gender dysphoria is actually they're fixated about bits of their body that they don't feel comfortable having in the identity they have formed. So it's about, basically gender is about identity. It's not the only thing. There's loads of things that contribute to identity. And it's a journey as you develop your identity, particularly in this age group. And gender's only a part of it, but the main part of it is the social part of it in terms of what society expects of you. And that's everybody from parents to teachers to police officers to social media. So that expectation of who you should be winds up kind of is almost sometimes it shouldn't be, but almost battling with who you feel you are as that emerges. Now, often people who don't like people who are attracted to the same sex, I often say to them, when did you choose to be heterosexual? People don't think of it as a choice. It's exactly the same for homosexual. They don't think it's not a choice. They just feel that way. So I think that's the same with gender. Sometimes you just feel that you have those characteristics that you want to feel. And to be honest, most of us are in the middle. We have characteristics of so-called male things and so-called female things, but it's only the way society's labelled them. If you look at physical shape, fat women were the epitome of desire. Now, if you're more than 2 kilos below what everybody think,
Yeah, for sure. And would you ever discuss like where that comes from? Like how do you know that you're like bisexual? Or...
You discover it. Because what you do is you try things out and then you discover what you feel comfortable with. And it may be you've been married, you may well be bisexual, but you've been in a heterosexual relationship because it's expected of you. And then as you grow and journey through, you get more and more uncomfortable and you realise that actually expressing yourself in this way is just, you feel terrible. And so you want to try and express yourself in another way. And I think that's the same with gender. It's kind of like expressing who you are. And for some people, the dysphoria is around, if I've got big breasts, I can't express who I am. Or if I've got a penis, I can't express who I am. And that's quite different from having hormones where you can back up with the hormonal stuff, chemical part of you, if you like, how you feel. That's reversible. quite often, most things are reversible with hormones. Might take a bit of time to reverse, and few things are irreversible, but surgery, that's quite different because that's irreversible. So you have to be really certain on your gender journey to have a surgery, in my view.
When you say some things like hormones are reversible, what do you mean? Like how? So
if you're on testosterone as an extra hormone, then the lower voice is probably irreversible, but most other things, the hair growth, producing eggs, they're all virtually reversible. If you're on estrogen, then again, sperm production, it's a bit like having a vasectomy. If you've had a vasectomy, it's been in place for about 10 years, sperm production is pretty irreversible. But same thing with testosterone. If we're being on estrogen, if it's not for too long, then it's reversible. If it's for a long time, then it's more likely to be irreversible.
Do you ever hear of stories like if people have been on like hormones and then they want to get off them? Or?
Oh yes, all the time. So that's the point about this journey. You're trying to discover and you're trialing out, and it's important to allow that flexibility. In the past there was no flexibility. You had to be according to how your bits told you, society told you to be, and that was meant quite a few miserable people.
Are you talking about like stereotypes, kind of like
to a certain extent? Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What's your advice to those youth living with gender dysphoria?
Keep talking to people who understand. Don't talk to people who don't understand, because they won't be of any help, because they don't have a clue where you're coming from. But talk to people who understand, and they don't necessarily have had to have gender dysphoria themselves, but if they can understand where you're coming from and they're good listeners, then that's the best people to talk to, because as you talk, it formulates your own ideas and it helps you formulate your identity.
And just for those like who have a faith where they don't obviously engage in sex before marriage, like what role do you see abstinence playing in sexual health?
Oh yeah, I think it's fine. It's great if it's your choice, and it's got to be both partners' choice.
How do you navigate the ethical dilemmas in your practice?
Again, I go from we're all very, very different, but we all express them differently. To me, it's like all the different faiths that there are. I'm just looking at religious faiths, never mind many other places that people, because we all like to express the way we believe and the way we do things in different ways. And we should be allowed to do that. When people force each other's ways of doing things, their own way of doing things on other people, then you've got a danger of a cult. Allowing people to express themselves.
When you described like the protesters that were outside like last year about the puberty blockers, what did you mean when you said moral panic? Oh,
I think there's people who go, oh no, we're all going to be transgender. Oh, help.
Yeah,
just not true. It's like, oh no, we're all going to go down the tubes because we watched social media. I think there's more danger of that than anybody going down the tubes because they're transgender. Yeah. But I think it's something that's always existed. It's never going to be hugely common, but it's about, but they make a big noise because they're not accepted. We just accepted it. To be sexually healthy, you need to be mentally healthy. Our brain is our biggest sex organ. It's not just our genitals, it's our brains, actually. And that's what I say to young people. It's probably best to wait till you have sex first time, because your brain's more geared and you'll enjoy it more.
Thank you for listening to Voices Unhindered. It's great hearing from my listeners. Reach out with questions and comments through Insta or Facebook. Just search for Voices Unhindered. I'm interested to know what other topics and voices you'd like me to bring on the show. Join me every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. on Plains FM 96.9. You can find past episodes at plainsfm.org.nz and subscribe to Voices Unhindered on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to never miss an episode.